Hi everyone, this is Mindy and welcome to my channel. Today I have a fun and nostalgic project to share with you featuring this retro charm birthday card and these adorable stacked casserole dishes. Now this card is giving all of those fun vintage kitchen vibes with some playful patterns and just the right touch of kitcheny charm. So let's check it out. So the products I'm using today are from Hero Arts. This is the classic cabinet, the classic casserole, and then also on the shelf stamp and die set. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bunch of die cutting off screen using these classic casserole dishes. So you have two layers to each one. The first layer is going to have the design, and then the bottom layer is going to be kind of the color you want to show through your design. So I will be using the Celestial cardstock from Spellbinders and some Hammermill cardstock. Now I'm going to start actually layering my dishes together. So here, as I had mentioned, you have two layers. You have your top layer, so it can be any color that you want, and then your bottom layer, which is going to show through those die cut pieces. Or you could do a die cut inlay if you wanted to have maybe multiple colors on the front of your dishes. Now, I was going for a very nostalgic look for my dishes. This kind of reminds me of home. So it's got that blue in there. I could have gone actually a darker blue, I think is what was on the dishes growing up and that we actually still use, I think, at holidays. But I really love the Celestial cardstock. It's more of a I guess I want to say country kind of feel to it, country farmhouse vibe to it. Now, some of these do have an additional layer that kind of goes at the rim of each of the lids. So you can put that underneath or on top, depending on how you want your dishes to look. Now I have these two little plants. I believe this came off of the classic cabinet die set, and I did these out of Acorn cardstock and Palm cardstock. And these are going to kind of help build my scene for my dishes. One of the really interesting elements that I added to my card project are these windows in the background. Now, these that I have here it has kind of that grate look to it. These actually belong to a kitchen cabinet. So it's on the classic cabinets die set, but I thought it looked really neat as having shutters in the background. Now, I know my scene is not going to be really correct because you're not going to see shutters in the inside of your house, but I just thought it looked really neat and added a little bit of that retro charm to my card. So I die cut that first layer out of white. I added it to fog cardstock, and then I'm going to trim around it. So that way it's just a little bit of a light gray in that graded area. Then once I have these trimmed out, I am going to start building my background scene. And to do that off screen, I trimmed up a bunch of, I think they're 1/4 inch strips from Fawn cardstock. And what I wanted this to be was like a layered paneled floor look. So I am going to lay these down using a tape runner and I'm going to make it uneven. I don't want all of those pieces, sorry about my head. I don't want all of those kind of pieces to line up perfectly. I want it to be like that layered panel look. And I'm working on a craft media mat. I get a lot of questions about this. This is actually a large mat that I trimmed down into smaller pieces, and it just works really great for catching the extra adhesive and it cleans up really well with rubbing alcohol. Now, after I kind of got my floor laid down, I just trimmed off any excess. So that's going to be kind of my grounding point for my casserole dishes so they're not kind of floating in air. Now, once I have that done, I'm going to go back and work on my windows. So I wanted this to kind of really resemble a window. So I'm adding this to a strip of Mindy cardstock. This is from Spellbinders. I added one shutter to the very edge, and then I'm bringing in my actual card base so I can get an idea how big of a window I need. And then I can place that down just using a tape runner. I'll trim it off on the right-hand side, and then I'll bring in my paper trimmer to trim off the excess at the top. Now, again, I know this is not very realistic, but I think it turned out pretty cool. And I love that I could use the cabinet doors and create shutters out of them. So just kind of another fun look for your die set. For the sentiment, I'm using the stamp set on the shelf. It has a really fun, playful sentiment to it. And I'm going to stamp that directly onto my baseboards there on my floor. So I'm trying to make sure I'm centered as best as I can, even if I'm stamping over one of those lines where it separates. So you do want to be mindful of that. Then I'm going to add my window in the background. So I'm going to center that. I realized after I took the picture that one of my shutters is actually a little crooked, but hopefully you don't notice that. Now I can start actually building my scene. So what I like to do is I laid out my casserole dishes and I stacked them up. And that's just kind of as a guide so that I could glue my plants down in the background using a liquid glue. Now, all of my dishes are going to be popped up with thin foam squares. I did the first one already, and then I am just kind of working my way down from the bottom. You could start from the top. I don't think it really matters. I just wanted them to kind of slightly overlap, but also be a little popped up from the background. Now I have a top folding card base, so I just added some tape runner to the top of that, and I'm going to place my card front onto my card base. And that wraps up today's retro charm birthday card. I just love how these stacked casserole dishes bring in that cozy vintage kitchen feel, perfect for a fun and unique birthday design. Now, I will have all of my supplies linked down below in the video description and over on my blog. I hope this project has sparked a little inspiration for your next crafty session. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more creative ideas. Thanks so much for watching, and here is another video I think you might enjoy.